The wholesome story starts at the house of fortune-telling run by magical Mojikawa, an apprentice witch, and the girl narrating the first scenes. The shop is quite small and modest and doesn't stand out too much from the surrounding village. Its entrance is flanked by a pair of windows over which hangs the store's sign. Since she is using actual magic, it is much more accurate compared to the usual fortune-telling, and infinitely more accurate than the fake fortune-tellers and psychics in real life. On this sunny day, the witch is visited by a young woman who wants to know more about her future with her husband. However, as the witch spreads out a deck of cards, she draws one indicating the end of a relationship. In fact, when she picks the card, she gets a vision of the woman's husband cheating on her at that very moment. Although she gets quite embarrassed, the witch apologizes to the woman and shows her the card, telling her that love won't last. People don't normally take kindly to being told their relationship is about to end, so the woman angrily barges through the door and leaves. The witch calls out to her and reminds her about her payment, only to have her money thrown into her face. Quite rude of you, Karen. As she bends down to pick up the money, the witch feels confused since she was only telling the truth. Her divination is especially accurate when it comes to romance, and she can sugarcoat them if she wants, but she's not very good at telling lies. Learning to sugarcoat things is quite an important skill. If you're a doctor and your patient doesn't have long to live, instead of telling them that directly, you might want to consider telling them their bus will be here shortly. Unfortunately for her, the witch's lack of tact results in her not getting that many customers. It doesn't help that most people seeking a fortune teller want to hear positive things, so being told the truth often makes them feel worse. The witch is actually having problems with two things. The first is about having a stable income. The woman was actually her first customer in 2 days. As she holds the bills in her hands, you can't help but wonder, why is she charging customers $4,000? She's almost as predatory as real-life psychics and spirituals. The second problem she has is about to show up. There are a few knocks on the door and a young boy's voice calls out, asking if he can come in and eliciting a few shy thoughts from the witch. He's here. She thinks telling him to come in. That's exactly what he's about to do to her in a second. In fact, her visions have already told her the future and spoiled the plot of this anime for her. The boy is named Leo and he looks like a young messenger. When he enters, he greets her with a light-hearted and cute hello. MC is going to be in a romance with the witch and has been the future she keeps foreseeing no matter what. Please take a seat, Leo. The witch stammers, still unable to get the visions of the future out of her head. She asks if he ran all the way here because he missed her before saying she's just teasing him. In her head, however, she wonders what she's even saying. Of course, MC admits he did run here for her, and she starts trembling and blushing, the witch's purple eyes spinning wildly. She recalls some words her mother once told her. Divination means precognition, which for those of us who didn't memorize a dictionary means seeing the future. Since it is magic that can influence people's lives, it must be used with extreme precaution. Her mother once drilled that reminder into her. But just like many of the warnings our parents gave, that one didn't seem to stick. She fans out a deck of cards and asks MC what he wanted to know today. He replies he just wants to know about a certain thing again, which refers to the person he has a one-sided crush on. He wants to know if things will go well and has gotten really curious about it over the past few houses. The witch takes a deep breath and the cards start to levitate. MC first came to the witch's shop asking her to predict the whereabouts of a lost object, specifically a key that turned out to be on the ground wedged between a cabinet and the wall. After finding it based on her divination, MC went back to her shop to tell her about it right away, and his eyes filled with tears back then. Since then, he drops by around once a week. He talks to her, asks for fortune-telling about love, and leaves afterward. His love interest is of course 100% the witch, and she doesn't even need magic to realize that. Regardless, just like me while taking exams, she keeps checking it using her divination spell. Sure, she's made a mistake somewhere, but his feelings for her are definitely certain and only grow stronger when she's fortune-telling. His desires grow when he visits her shop and leaves him in a certain rising state when he's close to her. His head is filled with thoughts about her, from how pretty her eyes are to wanting to touch her thighs to wanting to hold hands, the most inappropriate thing in the world obviously, to touching her soft face and her melons. In other words, he really wants to stay at her house, skipping all of the edge running in the process, if you know what I mean. In the end, he's able to pick up on his thoughts. While other troublemaking customers and people have also felt that way in the past, she's never had a problem taking care of them using her magic. However, when she looks at MC's unwavering blue eyes and his slightly high-pitched happy voice, which is definitely by a female voice actor, and when she sees his seemingly soft hands, even she starts to feel surprisingly strange. As she rolls a critical fail on her concentration check, the levitating cards drop and she quickly bends down to pick them up, offering to do it again for him and scolding herself for being so clumsy. She needs to get her act together and stop being so clumsy. We're now 5 minutes into the anime, so it's time for MC to seize the initiative and do something. When he sees her donkey, he apologizes for not being able to hold back and goes over to her, wrapping his arms around her and grabbing her melons. The witch offers a little protest at first, but it's obvious she's really enjoying it too. While the funny acts play out, I'm legally obliged to warn you that you must gain someone's explicit consent. Don't try this at home. Soon enough, however, the witch tells him they can do it, but they need to close the shop first, so customers don't accidentally stumble into their playtime. MC begs her to show it to him and obliges, showing him her 2 large cards. If you catch my drift. The card's name is the Hunter and the Prey, and its general interpretation is that things will be settled, whether they are for better or worse, or that something new is about to happen. When the witch bears her melons at him, she apologizes to her mother and closes her eyes, blushing furiously. They're beautiful, MC tells her, which makes her really happy. Now fully unleashed, MC leaps onto her and it's playtime. He takes a nice sip of milk before preparing to put his card into her deck. They duly act on the witch's table for the next few minutes. Although I'd love to describe these things in detail, just like the witch herself, I want to make a living. Needless to say, he puts his card into her deck multiple times until the only prediction she can be sure of is that a baby might appear 9 months from now. After they're done, the witch turns away from him embarrassed about the cute noises she was making. But MC assures her they were really nice and he can't get enough of them. The witch scolds him and tells him all this is his fault, questioning why he would ever want a witch to act like this. That's a good question, actually. When witches were first imagined hundreds of years ago, I doubt anyone would think of a witch like this. Needless to say, we can call this Japan syndrome. Everything gets a cute form in Japan. The witch calls him a bad boy and threatens to curse him, causing him to blush and apologize. The scene now changes to a memory from the witch's past. Witch staves are made from mandrake saplings, which enhance the magic power of girls by heating up the blood of witches. Of course, riding any stick like that would probably heat up the blood of any girl, even if she isn't a witch. Over time, her relationship with MC has grown very intimate, and she even let him ride on her broom together to go on a picnic date. The entire time they're in the air, MC holds on by grabbing the witch's melons while she tries to convince him to be patient. Flying is just like driving in a way. If you get distracted, you might get hurt. So just like the responsible witch she is, the two instead go and play in some random farmer's barn nearby. The witch tells him to calm down, but her words don't seem to be taking effect. If only she had something to force him to be patient. Like magic, perhaps? No? Oh well, what a tragedy. The witch tells him they can do it when they get to their picnic place, and her persuasion seems to work. Until MC once again catches sight of her donkey and proceeds to place his card into her deck again. This kind of stuff happens a lot since MC gets excited regardless of time and place, even when they're in a really awkward situation. Isn't that such a shame? If only there was something to calm a guy down like magic? No? Oh well. Instead, the two of them do it in the barn. MC questions whether the witch's protests were even real since she must have gotten really excited too. What with riding that brew and having her melons touched? The smell of the barn combined with MC's stiff mandrake sapling are too much for the witch to handle. MC puts so many cards in her deck that the witch doesn't think any more can fit. Only after doing this does he apologize for treating her so roughly, especially in the middle of their date. The witch doesn't seem to take issue with this and instead gives him a very deep kiss before telling him not to worry and showing her massive melons to him. For their date today, they were planning to get a bit out of town and eat together before picking walnuts. But from how things are going, it looks like the only person getting a walnut will be her. As she squirms while MC plays with her melons, she admits the walnuts will have to wait for another time. Then, playtime between the two happens and one more witch is satisfied by a deck of cards. The story picks up with the witch sweeping her house. She's getting a lot of practice cleaning the floor, which she'll need after the spills that are about to happen. There's a knock on the door and she calls out, asking for them to give her a moment. When she opens the door, she smiles and welcomes the person to the Moji House of Fortune Telling. The witch's name is Magical Mojikawa, and she specializes in fortune-telling magic, though she barely gets by as usual. When a lady goes in to get her future romances told, she lifts her hands and causes a row of cards to rise into the air. After looking through the future, Mojikawa winks and tells the lady her future romantic prospects are looking great. Her partner is 5 years younger, so these stars are all aligned. Unfortunately for her, there must be some sort of misunderstanding because the lady tells her the guy is actually older than her. Surprised, Mojikawa drops the cards and stammers as she tries to regain her posture. After looking at the cards on the table, she realizes that the actual future is the opposite, and that the lady's love life isn't going to be looking so hot. Understandably, the customer runs out, leaving a wad of sad dollars on the table. This kind of thing has happened quite often, and it really makes you wonder why she doesn't just do what real-world psychics do. Moving on, it turns out Mojikawa has been thinking about a certain boy, and her magic has been out of condition recently. Leo goes over to visit her as he usually does, the boy sitting next to her while listening to her explain the ins and outs of magic. Of course, we all know the only ins and outs he cares about. MC remarks how magic has its own condition, and it's restated how bad Mojikawa's is at the moment. It's beyond bad, but Leo tells her he believes in her and that he's sure she'll do just fine. Having received MC's reassurances, she looks down at her boyfriend while he lays in her lap. Without another word and only 2 minutes into the episode, he asks to suck on her melons. Leo is quite a promiscuous and spoiled kid, and needless to say, we're in a so the banging noises start about now. After several minutes of gratuitous content that would certainly get us demonetized, Mojikawa recalls how Leo had seemed interested in her other hole recently, and she had done certain preparations for his entrance while in the shower. So while they're at it, MC initiates the entry permit and goes in for that thick loot, his invasion of her home causing her to make countless cute noises and reveal her true self. Looks like he's found the Death Star's exhaust port, and he definitely knows how to blow her up. As it turns out, the reason Mojikawa's magic has been acting up is probably because MC's wand is draining her spiritual power. Every time they do the deed, her juices run low and she ends up unable to be a good witch. Meanwhile, floating in the sky above the store is another witch, who remarks how she really shouldn't be helping her in the middle of her training period. But we all know if she doesn't intervene, MC will be the one training Mojikawa, if you know what I mean. The mysterious witch decides to lend Mojikawa a bit of her power before flying off on her broom. Back down in the store, Mojikawa is laying on her back with both of her holes occupied. The pair are having the time of their lives, making very inappropriate but cute noises as they have at it. Neither of them notices the paper talisman in the window, which the mysterious witch is using to spy on them. As the witch watches through a magic orb, her hand goes to her skirt, but she's interrupted by a noise outside her door. Bummer, but not for long. It's room service at the hotel they're in. The witch is revealed to be Mojikawa's mother. She usually stays at her forest cabin where she sells elixirs for a living, just like a very typical witch. However, certain things caught her attention and she ended up in the city instead. As the room service dude leaves after delivering her dinner, she calls out to him and asks him to bring her a new bathrobe later. If someone asks you to do that for them, you've got to be dense not to realize what they actually want. Just as you'd expect, when he shows up later that night, she thanks him for the bathrobe and asks him to help her undo the ribbons on the back of her dress. She's drunk too much as usual, and the attendant expresses concern at how she does this every day. Just as the ribbons come off with the rest of her dress, the witch grabs his hands and places them on her melons. This is her third day of doing this, and the room service elf is definitely a professional at giving massages where it matters. Who can blame her? After watching MC and her daughter having at it, the woman within her is now awakened. Needless to say, the two engage in a bit of pre-concert fun before the witch opens up and begs the attendant to empty his egg drop soup into her bowl. Until now, the witch had devoted herself to her craft, believing that magic helps people and enlightens them. She lived decently and righteously as a witch all this time, but after all that she did, here she is, checked into a small hotel in a town where her daughter lives, making a child with a room attendant. The two do it through the night, and the witch comes to the realization that if she were to lend her daughter a hand now and stop her from doing stuff with Leo, she'd just be hampering Mojikowa's own growth. As the time comes, just like her, she remarks she needs to check out soon, but he's still checked in. He promptly fills her with tons of enthusiasm and tells her he'll be waiting until she returns the next month. Next time, maybe she'll shout "coming" before she enters the room, instead of when they're already there together. After this day, Mojikowa's mother sent her a letter about her situation and quickly solved her issues with MC. On the other hand, the witch herself continued her monthly hotel visits. Though I wonder what her daughter would think if she knew she was coming for a guy and not for her. I can't say, but I'm sure the two would make great Yuri together. The story starts with a flashback showing Elena in her adolescence with her parents. Back then, she loved to read books. Her favorite book was Adventures of Nike. It was a story about a witch who traveled the world. Young Elena proclaims to her parents that she'll one day become a witch and travel the world just like Nike. Her parents agreed to it, but only when she's older and becomes a witch. Following her dream, Elena assiduously studied every day, and at the age of 14, she passed the witch exam. This remarkable achievement made her the youngest girl to become an apprentice witch in the history of her country of Robetta. Following her passing the exam and becoming an apprentice witch, Elena's parents enjoy a special meal together. Elena's mother notes how forlorn Elena looks, and this is due to the other examinees being too weak. However, this makes her believe that she'll become a full-fledged witch in no time. A monologue from Elena elucidates how an apprentice witch becomes a full-fledged witch by interning with a witch and having them acknowledge them. This, however, is proven to be impossible for Elena, as every witch she approaches rejects her, due to her being the youngest person to pass the witch exam. She hears her parents talking about a witch who settled in the nearby woods and calls herself the Stardust Witch. The next day, Elena visits the forest where the Stardust Witch is and catches her gleefully playing with some butterflies by her house. Approaching the witch, she instantly recognizes Elena and her honorable accomplishment. Figuring she has no chance of becoming her apprentice, Elena tries to fly away. However, the witch agrees to become her master. From there on out, Elena became the apprentice to the Stardust Witch Fran. Days pass by since Fran accepted Elena as her apprentice, but hasn't taught her magic. Instead, she's completed many menial tasks assigned to her by Fran for a month's time. While making a pot of stew for Fran, who doesn't want any and requests that something else be made instead, Fran tells Elena that she's going to have a test for her. Outside by a cliffside that's close to a waterfall, Fran has a duel with a sheepish Elena. As it starts to rain, Fran goes all out against her apprentice. Fed up with the one-sided approach from her master, Fran goes on the offensive, only to be easily overpowered by Fran. In the end, Fran wins the duel, putting Elena at her mercy, which makes her apprentice cry. Flustered, Fran tries to cheer Elena up by conjuring butterflies, creating a crown from weeds, and juggling fireballs. All of them, though, fail to cheer up Elena, who believes Fran never intended to make her a witch, and she's like the other Robetta witches. In her defense, Fran promises that she'll never act like that toward her again, and that she is only acting on her parents' behalf. Elena's parents wanted Fran to teach Elena about failures and setbacks. Originally, Fran wanted to subject Elena to trials to learn about setbacks, but she proved to be too well aware of herself, so it was unnecessary. But as her enduring these setbacks can be considered a pro, it's ultimately a con, as she endures too much as well. This is why Elena wasn't taught any magic, as Fran was simply waiting for her to reach her limit. The test that they did before was a part of it as well. From that day forth, Elena learned magic from Fran and started acting more assertive as well, much to Fran's dismay in some parts. After a full year, Elena passes Fran's apprenticeship and becomes a full-fledged witch. The witch title she's given is Ashen Witch due to her ash-colored hair, and it's inscribed into her emblem. It's also revealed that Fran was a distinguished witch from another country, and the reason why she came to that country was to meet a certain person. As to who that person is, Fran doesn't disclose it and goes on her way. After a tearful goodbye, Fran flies away on her broom. Returning to her home, Elena informs her parents that she's become a witch and asks for their permission to go on a journey. Elaine's mother allows it much to her father's chagrin, but imposes 3 promises. The first one is to run away from any trouble. Second, don't think of herself as anyone special. Always remember she's like everyone else. Finally, Elena must one day return home and show them that she's doing well. Dressed like a proper witch and carrying a diary to document all of her adventures as Nika did, Elena sets off on her journey at the age of 18. Just after arriving in the land of mages, a young witch crashes into Elena, causing the two to be on a rooftop, destroying the tiles on impact. Insisting on repairing them while the young witch tends to her head wound, Elena repairs the broken roof tiles with a time reversal spell. She then uses a healing spell on the injured witch and goes on her way, much to the protest of the young witch. Flying in the sky, Elena decides to stay at an inn, but she's rejected at every place she tries to stay at. Trying one last place, which is a cheap and dilapidated-looking place, Elena finds out that the young witch she encountered earlier that day works there. Flustered, she acts in a melodramatic way, believing that Elena is out to get her for revenge or something. However, Elena assures that's not the case and simply wants to stay in the inn. It's after signing the registry book that Elena finds out that she's missing her brooch. Both she and the young witch named Saya then go out and try and look for it at the site of the crash. To Elena's dismay, they're unable to locate it. That night, Saya breaks into Elena's room and begs her to teach her what she needs to know on how to pass the apprentice witch exam. Hearing Saya out, she learns that she and her sister Mina both come from a country to the east hoping to become apprentice witches. They both took jobs working as innkeepers, but after failing multiple times while taking the exam, Mina managed to pass and return home. Understanding Saya's situation and with the exam just around the corner, Elena decides to teach her. A monologue from Elena explains the process of the exam and what is in store for it. Outside the city, Elena first trains Saya with something she's shown to be not so great with: broomstick handling. Surprisingly, Saya handled her broomstick flying lessons well and improved her skills dramatically. They later enjoy dinner together and have a scene where Saya learns to be a picky eater and Elena forces her to eat foods she dislikes. The following day, Elena teaches Saya how to be proficient with wind magic. They accomplish this task by trying to cut an apple from a tree with wind magic, which helps cultivate precision. For the next few days onward, Elena continued her training with Saya and in between searched for her missing brooch. Eventually, an old lady informs Elena where her brooch is after she's paid a single gold coin. Elena Saya spare hat. Elena gave Saya her spare hat later that night. Saya shares a room with Elena, and the two sleep together. During this time, Elena reveals that not only is Saya an adept witch, but she's the one who took her brooch. It was part of a ploy to make Elena stay with her to keep from being so lonely. Understanding Saya's situation, Elena gives Saya her spare hat. In return for Elena's understanding and her gift, Saya promises to pay for her time in the inn. Elena also documents her experience in her journal before she goes to bed. 6 months pass since she was in the land of mages and Elena is now in a different country. She reads in the paper that Saya finally became an apprentice witch and that she's on a journey to find the one she loves. Elena flies on her broom through a forest and at the end reaches a vast and wonderful field of flowers. Soon she sees a lone young girl tending to the flowers in the field and talks with her about said flowers. Seeing her witch symbol, the young girl asks Elena to her deliver a bouquet of flowers to the country she'll soon enter. As to whom they're to be given to, it's anyone who thinks the flowers are beautiful, and Elena agrees to do so. That night, Elena arrives at the country checkpoint where she's stopped by a young abrasive guard there because of her flowers. A senior guard arrives and breaks up the confrontation, sending the young guard on his way and explaining the reason for his rude behavior. The guard also explains that the flowers need to be disposed of due to their poisonous nature and how witches are immune to said poison. Hearing this, Elena allows the man to dispose of her flowers. Afterward, Elena rents a room at an inn and writes in her diary. She then recalls a story in her favorite book involving a sentient mutated plant that wreaked havoc on people who could use magic. The following day, Elena leaves for the next country, but before she does, she flies back to the flower field one last time. Upon arriving there, Elena encounters the young soldier she met the day before who has been infected with a plant-like mutation. He's thankful for Elena bringing the flowers and the shawl that was used to wrap the flowers in as it belonged to his missing sister. Said sister was now just a humanoid-looking plant, and as her brother embraced her, she wrapped him up with her vines. Seeing this, Elena flies away as it starts to rain, while humanoid figures wrapped in vines and flowers head toward the city. Continuing her journey on her broom, Elena encounters a young man named Emil who carries a bottle full of happiness in a glass jug. The purpose of bottling happiness is for a young girl that Emil likes. This reminds Elena of a story she read about a magician husband who travels the world and recreates beautiful scenery for his bedridden wife with his magic. However, Elena can't recall how the story ends. Emil believes the story must have a happy ending as what the husband did was a great deed for his wife. He then explains that the bottled happiness is for his servant in his house named Nino, who is gloomy and ill. Riding on their brooms back to Emil's country, the man discloses that he's tried to gather happiness from plants, but failed. This makes Elena note that it's good that the plants didn't kill him, which confuses Emil. They soon arrive in the village and Elena notes the biggest house there must belong to the village chief, which is also Emil's house as well. When Elena inquires when Emil will give the bottle of happiness to Nino, he answers that he'll do it after lunch. He then asks Elena if she'd like to join them, to which she politely declines due to having breakfast earlier. However, Emil insists and the two head to the village chief's house. Inside the village chief's house, Emil tells Elena to make herself at home. As Elena settles herself in the house, a young girl appears and acts cordially in a timid manner. Elena asks if the young girl is from the east, stating that she knows someone from there. Emil enters the scene and confirms that the young girl is indeed from the east, as his father found her there. Asked as to where the chief is, the young girl notes that he's in his study and wants grilled fish with salt. As the young girl enters the kitchen, Emil notes that he has a special present for the young girl who was Nino and has a present for her. Although Nino declines as the chief would be angry, Emil insists and makes it in order. Nino and Emil then head into the kitchen and the village chief enters the scene and he and Elena are acquainted with one another. Eventually, lunch is served and afterward, Nino and Emil leave to clean the dishes in the kitchen. While they do this, Elena asks the chief about Nino's background, and he answers that Nino was bought by him. She was bought as a slave to do the work that the chief's wife who left him did around the house. It's also noted that Nino is quite beautiful and she'll become more beautiful when she matures. A scene then occurs involving Nino breaking a pitcher of water, caused by Emil unintentionally surprising her. Angry, the village chief reprimands Nino as his son tries to defend her. So Elena solves the situation by using her magic to repair the water pitcher. Outside of the house, Emil and Elena talk about Nino's depressed attitude. Elena notes that now would be the perfect time to give her his gift. Later, Emil does this and the results leave Nino overjoyed as Emil promises to make her happy. At dusk, Elena leaves the heads off on her broom and recalls the ending of the story that she told Emil. Apparently, the magician who showed his ill-bedridden wife the various images he captured didn't make her happy, but more depressed. This leads her to kill herself at the end of the story. Recalling this, Elena refuses to think any further about what Nino will do after seeing the captured images. During her travels, Elena encounters key snowstorm and is looking for a place to spend the night. She spots a snowy, deserted country below seemingly in ruins. There is one building still standing, a castle with a magical ward surrounding it. Once Elena manages to get in by burning down its doors, she encounters the sole inhabitant, a princess named Rose. Rose hospitably offers Elena food and a room to stay in for the evening. During their tea, Mira Rose explains that she's lost her memory and only knows about the country's destruction and the safety of the castle due to a mysterious letter. The letter goes on to describe that a monster named Javelier is responsible for the country's destruction. It awakens during sunset and will stop at nothing until it kills Mira Rose. The letter implores Mira Rose, now outed as a witch, to kill the monster and end its reign of terror. Despite her memory loss, Mira Rose is confident in her magic abilities to defeat Javelier. Elena refuses to help Mira Rose since she has nothing to gain but takes pleasure in the rooms and bread Mira Rose offers. However, to show her appreciation, Elena agrees to help Mira Rose create a pitfall trap to contain Javelier while Mira Rose bombards it with magical attacks. Come nightfall, the plan works perfectly and Mira Rose mercilessly attacks the trapped Javelier. She also regains her memories and beheads Javelier, who is revealed to be her king father, whom she greatly despises. Mira Rose turned her father into a monster in retaliation for him killing her servant lover, the cook. Elena leaves the castle unnoticed to continue her travels while Mira Rose, whose mind is broken from grief, bakes and talks to herself. Elena arrives in an unnamed country and spots books for sale named The Adventures of Fran. As she has a quick read, she notices the person inside looks just like her former teacher. This sparks a flashback 6 months ago when she visited the country Royal Celestria. Upon immediately arriving in Royal Celestria, Elena notices the happy atmosphere of the country, where the mages are doing tricks for everyone to enjoy. Elena stumbles upon a large building called the Royal Magic Academy and decides to open the gates with her magic. A local worker quickly prevents Elena from entering the building, despite her being a witch. Elena notices that many of the mages flying around are working, but is then stopped by 2 students from the Royal Magic Academy. The students try to convince Elena to come with them without asking any questions, but she declines. As she tries to leave, she is quickly surrounded by a group all ready to catch her. However, Elena uses her swift broomstick flying skills to avoid all the students despite them all working together. By evening, all the students have exhausted trying to catch Elena and are about to give up, until Fran shows up and explains the difference between them and a full witch. Elena is shocked to see her former teacher, and she learns that Fran is a teacher at the Royal Magic Academy. Fran reveals that she sent the students to try and capture Elena to use it as training for them, whilst also allowing Elena to be more easily found in the large country. The two catch up and Elena explains that she is traveling just like Nika in her favorite book. Fran also knows the book, and as they flip through their favorite story, Fula, the Apprentice Witch, it is subtly shown that Fula is actually Fran in the past, where she was taught by Nike and then becomes a traveler herself, whilst Nike ends up living in a countryside as an ordinary woman. Elena doesn't notice when Fran says, "That takes me back." Fran then explains that she loved the adventures of Nike so much that she wrote a novel as she traveled. But after writing 100 pages of the manuscript and reading it, Fran did not like what she wrote and never took out the manuscript from the bag again as she forgot about it. However, she ended up selling the bag with the manuscript inside. Fran remembers what she wrote occasionally, which makes her so embarrassed. She is scared that anyone will end up reading the text. Unbeknownst to her, Fran believes it's something I can laugh about now, as she believes it is forgotten. Fran then tells Elena to keep writing in her diary as she travels so she can one day hear stories of Elena's fun memories of the stories of her travels. The next day, the students ask questions for Elena. Elena then helps Fran teach the students to manipulate water out of buckets. The students are instructed to use their magic to get a round ball of water out of the bucket. Elena helps out those that ask for help to get a clean round ball of water out of the bucket. The evening before Elena leaves, Fran shows Elena her favorite spot in the country. Elena asks what the students will do once they graduate, and Fran explains that they'll work. But instead of working for money, the mages work because they like it. Fran plans to gift Elena and asks what she likes other than traveling and books, then decides to gift Elena flowers in the morning at the city gates. In the morning, as Elena is about to leave, she notices Fran still hasn't shown up and is prepared to leave when she notices small petals of flowers in the air thrown by Fran and her students. Fran explains that everyone is cheering on Elena and she should never forget that. They exchange goodbyes as Elena departs on her journey to the next country. In the last scene, which is linked to the opening scene, Elena closes the book of The Adventures of Fran and notices the artwork of Fran around the country. She knows that the next time she sees Fran again, she'll have an interesting story to tell her teacher. Guards at the Land of Truth Tellers explain to Elena that the country was renamed just 6 months ago, which explains why she couldn't find the country on her map. Skeptical that the country prevents people from lying, Elena decides to come into the country to find out herself. Elena first performs a test to see whether she can speak of a lie, but ends up inadvertently speaking the truth. She then notes that the town is awfully quiet. After being deceived by freshly baked bread, Elena realizes that the country is not what it expected to be, honest and pure. She is then interrupted by a woman asking if she is the witch who was dispatched by the United Magic Association, to which Elena denies, as affiliates of the association have moon-shaped brooches. Elena then finds out it is also impossible to lie when writing words on paper. Nearby, a fight breaks out to which an observer explains to Elena that no one talks because only speaking truths can turn into fights like these. Suddenly, a witch interrupts the fight with her magic to stop the violence. However, after noticing Elena, the spell stops and the punches from the fight end up connecting. It is revealed that Saya has now become a fully fledged witch named the Sooty Witch, resembling Elena's witch name. Saya also explains that she is working for the United Magic Association to earn money while traveling. Elena and Saya meet with Ihemia, and they learn why she cannot talk. Ihemia explains that 6 months ago, the king asked for her to find a way to remove all citizens who speak lies because he wants those who speak the honest truth by his side. Ihemia decides that the best way would be to create a barrier in the country that will stop anyone from lying. She then casts a spell on an old sword to use as a vessel for the barrier. However, it required so much power that she was forced to offer her own voice for the spell to work. The barrier sword has then been wielded by the king ever since, and due to Ihemia's loss of magic powers, she was expelled from the palace. Returning to the present, Ihemia's intention was for the two witches to make the country return to its original form. This could be done by destroying the king's sword, which will also restore Ihemia's magic and voice too. It is revealed that the king will leave the palace to give a speech in a month. However, Elena doesn't want to wait a month with Saya's presence, so they decide that the best way would be to enter the palace themselves. Using broken-up pages to write a sentence, the witches manage to grant permission by fooling the guard into letting them in. As the three prepare to speak with the king, the guards are called to stop the witches. Saya is tasked to handle the guards while Elena handles the king. A fight ensues and Elena tries to convince the king that only truths are not always the best thing, as lies can serve as a purpose to smooth over social interactions and preserve harmonious relationships between people. Those with ill intentions can still do bad things, even if they're unable to lie. Elena gives an analogy that if the truth is the sword, lies are its scabbard, which forms a protective cover to prevent the sword from harming others. As Saya starts to struggle against the guards and the king, thinking that the intruders have nothing left, Elena launches her broomstick from behind the king that she prepared the whole time during the fight to hit and force the king to release the sword. Elena then uses her magic to summon a hammer to destroy the barrier sword, which at last restores the kingdom's original form, plus Ihemia's ability to talk and use magic again. With the barrier sword finally destroyed, the kingdom becomes bright and happy again. Additionally, the king acknowledged the errors of his ways and apologized to the country. Ihemia is also reinstated at the palace. In the last scene, Saya thanks Elena for helping her and gets Elena a dual dolphin heart necklace that matches Saya's. Saya then makes a promise to Elena that they must meet again in the future, to which Elena agrees. When she was young, Elena read a story about how Naked convinced the officials of a divided country to allow travelers to carve into the wall. In the present, Saya is in the country and she convinces the officials to allow the people in the country to carve into it as well. When Elena arrives in the country, she discovers the wall was torn down. She then picks out a piece of the wall that partially has Saya's message on it. In a village, an old man tells his grandchild the story of how the Great Throwing Festival started. He reveals the village was divided when a witch showed up. The village chief asked the witch to help stomp grapes. She was reluctant to do so until she was insulted by Rosemary, a famous poster girl. Later, The chief and the witch found out Rosemary was not the one who stomped the grapes. While the villagers were arguing, the witch drunkenly threw grapes at everyone. This eventually led to the festival's origin. Back in the present, it is revealed the chief and Rosemary are married. Elena is walking around and notices the country has dolls scattered everywhere on the streets and shops. She notices another witch, revealed to be from the United Magic Association, is trying to gather information from citizens on whether they know anything about the crimes relating to the Ripper. It is revealed that over the last few years, the Ripper has been taking the lives of many women. After the talk with the citizens, Sheila the Night Witch reveals herself to Elena and asks if she knows anything about the crimes. Due to Elena not knowing who the Ripper is, Sheila asks for her help if she finds any clues, to which Elena agrees. Elena stumbles upon a store that gives away free dolls and takes a look. The shopkeeper reveals that all the dolls in the store are made by herself and that she is giving them for free because she likes to see the happy faces of customers. Trying to convince Elena to take a doll, Elena refuses in the end due to the creepy nature of the dolls. Elena settles the night at a hotel and immediately notices a doll placed in the room. She decides to send the doll into the closet using her magic. Elena then relaxes by taking a bath, writing in her diary, and reading a book until she falls asleep. In the morning, Elena wakes up and notices the window is open, but doesn't think much of it. After washing her face, she notices her hair was cut short, which sparks a flashback from the day before when a citizen says, "I know the lives of 4 women were taken," which refers to a woman's hair. Elena then calls Sheila to investigate. After searching the whole room, they then find out that the closet contains the hair of the doll from the day before. Sheila notices Elena's necklace and her witch name but brushes it off when Elena asks what's wrong. The 2 witches are about to leave the hotel when Elena notices the concierge's doll's hair is exactly like a human's hair, so Sheila decides to forcefully interrogate and ask where he got it from. It is revealed that the doll was from the secret auction which sells special dolls. In the evening, the 2 witches head to the auction in their special clothes and masks. The first few products are revealed to the ecstatic audience, but the 2 witches don't find anything useful to the case of the Ripper. It is not until the last auction that it is revealed that these dolls feature real human hair, and Elena notices one of the dolls is exactly the one from her room, having Elena's ashen hair. Preparing to make a move, Sheila calms Elena down, saying that the bidders don't have anything to do with the crimes, but then the audience cheers as it is revealed the dolls are from the Ripper. As the auction starts, Elena quickly knocks out the auctioneer and expresses her frustration to the audience that they are enemies of women. She calls out the Ripper to reveal themselves, but to no avail. Elena decides to lure out the Ripper by torturing the doll, ripping the head off, pulling off the hair, and stepping on the doll, which causes the shock in the audience. The Ripper then reveals herself to be the shopkeeper from the day before who gave away free dolls. Elena tries to expose the Ripper by claiming that she is trying to earn money despite claiming that she doesn't care about money. The Ripper then tells Elena that she ends up donating the profits from the auction to the poor, to which the audience claps, which irks Elena. She then asks why the Ripper would make women sad despite wanting to see happy faces. The Ripper replies that she wants to not only see happy faces, but also any expression of human emotion, whether it be sad, angry, or laughing. The Ripper then tries to scare Elena by saying she can't win against her as she is a witch. Nevertheless, Elena reveals herself to be a witch too and summons a cage to trap the Ripper. Sheila then also engages and handcuffs the Ripper. Sheila thanks Elena for the help as the case is finally closed. Elena then uses her magic to transfer the hair from the doll back to herself. In the last scene, Sayat calls out to Sheila and asks what the woman did to be caught. Sheila reveals that the woman is the Ripper, who went around cutting women's hair, including the hair of a traveling witch who had ashen hair with the same hat and necklace as Saya. Realizing who it is, Saya fumes and walks towards the Ripper, much to the woman's delight. Elena, out of funds and beginning to starve, encounters a flyer that promises payment for an ultra-short-term job, instructing readers to visit the listed address immediately. Elena, at the listed address, meets Estelle, a fellow witch who has been researching time travel magic. After insulting each other, Elena inquires about the payment and job. Estelle explains her history with Selena, how she turned into a psychotic murderer after the death of her parents and abused by her uncle, her capture and her execution at Estelle's own hands. She then reveals that the job is to escort her to the past 10 years ago in order to rescue Selena's murdered parents to prevent her unfortunate fate. Elaborating on how this can be done, Estelle reveals that she has gone to drastic lengths to ensure the success of the spell, bloodletting herself to stockpile mana, and further revealing that she will sacrifice her own magical abilities in the process of enacting the spell. She then reveals 2 sets of magic rings that, when worn, allow users to share their magic power, allowing Estelle to retain magical abilities for as long as they both wear the rings. Interested in seeing the city in the past and agreeing to the terms, Elena and Estelle travel back in time 10 years. Upon arrival, Estelle explains that they have 1 hour to locate Selena's parents and save them before the magic ends and they return to their time, further elaborating that this will not affect their timeline and is purely to help Estelle live with herself. Later, Estelle encounters a young Selena and emotionally apologizes for not being able to save her before and vows to be successful this time. Alarmed, Selena politely says goodbye to Estelle, who then goes off to locate Selena's parents to save them. Elsewhere, Elena ponders the story that Estelle had told her and wonders why a mere robbery would result in such an intense stabbing. Resuming her search, Elena's ring activates, indicating to her that Estelle has entered combat, supposedly with the murder. However, shortly before Elena can reach Estelle, the stream of magic is cut. Now panicking, Elena turns the corner to discover a veritable hellscape. A figure stands amidst the flames, blood, and corpses, and turns to face Elena, revealing herself as Selena. Realizing that Elena was the woman she saw earlier with Estelle, she laughs through blood-covered teeth, stomping on Estelle's body. She explains to Elena that her parents were cruel people and their happiness was a facade, so she killed them. After asking Elena who they were, she explains that they could come here to save her from becoming a murderer and being executed by Estelle. Selena, amused by this development, charges at Elena. Still alive, Estelle overheard the exchange and attacked Selena, launching her at a wall. Estelle, blinded by fury and heartbroken, frantically attacks Selena with magic. Elena begs Estelle to stop and struggles to remove her ring. However, it does not stop Estelle, who is now burning the memories of Selena in order to kill her. As the clock strikes 6, Selena's decapitated head and body fall to the ground amidst the fire. It is revealed that she no longer retains any memories of Selena, and Elena flees her home without the payment. Collapsing on a park bench and crying, Elena reflects on the situation, how Estelle no longer remembers her childhood friend and had now killed her twice with her own hands. After ordering Saya to deliver a box to the United Magic Association branch in the town of Kunorts, Sheila prepares to go on an annual vacation with Fran. On their way, the two recall their youth as fellow apprentices of Nika. They frequently clashed until their master tasked them with apprehending the Curio Company, a band of robbers that terrorized Kunorts. Unfortunately, their continued clashing only caused them to get in each other's way, and they ended up getting captured. Ultimately, the two put their differences aside and worked together to defeat the Curio Company. Afterward, they became full-fledged witches. Back in the present, Sheila recognizes the box as having belonged to the Curio Company, and she rushes after Saya. Meanwhile, Elena arrives in Kunorts. Elena is in Kunorts where she reads an article stating that the Curio Company is free after 20 years. Meanwhile, Saya arrives in the town where she encounters the leader, who unsuccessfully tries to steal the box. She then meets up with her younger sister, Mina, who is working undercover. The leader later finds Elena, and she uses a spell that causes Elena and Saya to switch bodies. While inside Saya's body, Elena opens the box, which releases a love potion that spreads throughout the town. After they find each other, Elena and Saya apprehend members of the Curio Company in order to find the location of the leader. Once they confront her, she brags that there are more members in town that they have not captured. Just then, Fran and Shayla arrive to help restore order. The next day, Elena and Saya are back in their bodies. When Sheila, Saya, and Mina leave town, Elena and Fran have a conversation before they go their separate ways. Elena then decides to continue on her journey. Elena arrives in a country that claims it makes wishes come true. Once she heads inside, she notices that the locations are places she previously visited. When Elena goes to Muros's castle, she learns there are many versions of herself. At a meeting, it is revealed that one of the Elenas has been attacking everyone. Shortly thereafter, the violent Elena shows up. When the real Elena wonders why the violent Elena is doing this, she admits that she wants everyone to experience the same pain she feels as she never got over what happened in Rostov. Following an exhausting battle, the real Elena makes peace with the violent Elena. When they return to the castle, the Elenas decide to turn their diaries into a book titled Wandering Witch. Afterward, Elena is in another country when she bumps into a girl named Amnesia, and they accidentally switch their books in the process. Elena reveals that she and Amnesia will travel together in the future.